The Finance, Audit, and Legislative Affairs Committee to order. And our first order of business, if you could give me a motion and a second to allow Jennifer to attend remotely. Okay, Member Salzer on the motion, Member Renault on the second. Okay, now I think you can vote. So how do I know what the vote was? Oh. Okay, passes unanimously. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thanks all.
Okay, and then the next is I need a motion and a second for approval of the minutes from the January 7th meeting. Motion, Member Duncan, and second, Member Williams. Was everyone able to vote? Oh, Jennifer,
Aye.
okay. Now we have everyone? Oh, Member Salzer. Okay, it was unanimous approval of the minutes. Next are informational items, and the first one is the monthly financial report as of November 30th. Julie?
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. In your packet, you have the November financial report. So that is through period 11. And for all funds combined, we are at 86.7% of the revenue and 64.76% of expenditures. And in general fund, we are at 88.2% of the budgeted revenues and 80.3% of the budgeted expenditures. We have estimated, based off of 1 month or one distribution of PPRT that we received in January, that we are potentially going to be under budget. We will have to keep an eye on that as the year goes on. We were expecting that with information that we have received from both our state representative and IML for PPRT. And so I just received today So if you go to iml.org, this is on their website. It is the February 2025 review magazine, and they have the state shared revenue estimate. So this is some good reading if you want to look at that, and it can go into a lot more detail than we go in our monthly financial report. And their estimate for PPRT is only about 12.5% below what was last year. So they're a lot more conservative than our state, which is a lot less. So we'll just have to monitor that as the year goes on. And the next distribution is in March. Our next financial report for FY24 will not be until March. And so at that time, it will just be an estimate of all the transactions that will be posted through period 12. Then the final report will not be until the end of June. So, but what we have in March should be a decent review of where we'll be at for FY24. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Questions? Member Blair.
This may be more appropriate for Scott, but we know that federal funding has been paused. Can you tell us, if you know yet, how that's going to impact us?
I think we're going to address that a little later.
Absolutely, we can do that. Whatever is the pleasure of the chair.
Are there other questions for Julie? Okay. Long-term care service fund report.
Good afternoon. The Long-Term Care Services Fund is, as of the end of November, was at almost a $3.2 million fund balance. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer.
Questions for Heather on long-term care service fund? No? Okay. Then accounts payable and employee reimbursements, purchase card activity.
Yes. So in your packet are all of the expenses charged to the county or paid from the county in December of 2024. And you'll notice this month we've added employee reimbursements. Those previously were not on the report because they're not captured in our accounts payable or purchase card statements, obviously, in those functions. And so they're paid out through payroll, but we were able to find a way to add those to the report. Those are things mostly like travel, sometimes dues and membership reimbursement, or like if they have a clothing allowance or safety glasses, those will be there. So we wanted to include those on the report for you as well.
Okay. Are there questions for Heather? Member Renault.
Thank you for that.
Sure.
I did notice, actually, this is the first time that travel was brought to my attention when reviewing it, so that's why it was the first time. I do have a question, and this is for Scott. Do we have a mechanism in place when employees travel to capture, like, where they went, what they learned, to share with either their peers or their subordinates, or even I would be interested in knowing what people are doing out there other than what happens here?
Short answer to your question is no.
Okay.
Follow-up question?
Wait,
I
that
would
was a
love
short
that.
answer.
I know some agencies do travel reports when they get back so that they can share that information. A lot of times you can only afford to send one person, and you just want to ensure that what their information they're gathering is shareable. So,
Right. I would say that there's not a formalized structure or process, and I can obviously really and honestly speak to how we've done it in the departments that I've worked in, throughout my time in the organization. So in planning and zoning, it was it's more informal sharing. In county administration, more informal sharing, where applicable, sharing documents that came back, any anecdotal information or notes that you might have taken while you were there. How the rest of the organization does it, we do not have a formalized process.
okay. I know when you travel, we see all, within your weekly updates, everything that you do. I just, I fully support sending people off to seminars and to conferences to get that information. I'm even more supportive when we actually go and we teach, we give lectures. So if anybody else would be interested in that, I don't know if we could come up with a way to capture that information. I know I would be interested, like I said, in just kind of knowing what our people are doing.
Are there other questions for Heather? Okay. Next is the Peoria County capital projects, funding sources, and progress.
Yes, thank you. So new this month in your packet is the 3 columns for fiscal 25, encumbrances, actual expenses, and the project balance near the end of the page. And because that's capturing activity through January 16th of this year, I will just say a couple of things for those that weren't at the infrastructure committee meeting yesterday where this question was asked. We have spent about $65,000 to date on the converting the cells at the jail to modular cells. So that's about $600 each. So the current budget that we have remaining, $135,000, will be rolled forward to fiscal 25. That's the intention. And then that would allow for about 225 more cells to be converted if the rate remains the same, of course.
Are there questions regarding our capital projects? Yes, Chairman Dillon.
I know I've said it before, but on those jail cell modifications, I think it's important to reiterate kudos to the sheriff and to the team, Sean Stanley specifically out there at the jail. They had estimates of $3,000 to $10,000 per cell. They're doing these on our T&M contracts, and we're doing some of this in-house. So when you see $600, that's a considerable savings from what, and the value of the T&M contracts that we have, where we basically did design build on repairing these from where they were. So the team saved us considerable amount of money and time and effort on these.
Good point. Are there other questions or comments? All right, then I'm adding 3.5 on the informational items and asking if Heather would please tell us about the federal grants.
Sure. I'll tell you what we know as of right now, which a memo was released, an order released late yesterday from the Office of Management and Budget, and it outlines a temporary pause on federal agency grants, loans, and other financial assistance programs. There are more questions surrounding it than information that we have at this time. There's more and more information coming out, but we'll probably know more by the deadline listed in the memo, which is February 10th, so a couple weeks from now. We should have clear information. But in the meantime, we have reached out to department heads and elected officials to inventory, per se, the grants that they have either in the budget for 25 or expected for 25, and to categorize them by federal funded directly, or a lot of times we have pass-through grants that come from state agencies, but those are actually federally funded also, or just state-funded grants, so that we have a better idea and can capture that information. And once we have more information, we'll certainly be willing and able to provide that for you. But right now, we don't really want to speculate too much.
Mr. Sorrell, did you have anything to add to that?
Not at this time, Madam Chair. I think as we get that data collected and we can ascertain what the total amount that is subject to the executive order, we'll be able to give you both a better fiscal picture of what the impact is, and also a programmatic impact of what it might be. But it's going to take a little bit of time. We've asked the departments to collect all that, or give us that information by Friday. We'll see if we can, if everyone is able to do that, and then go from there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We have one resolution, and that is the 2025 state legislative agenda. So I would entertain a motion and a second to put that on the floor. Member Blair and Member Duncan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So in your packets is the state legislative agenda for the current year. It is the same materials that were presented last week at the legislative breakfast, where we had the state legislators, the overwhelming majority of our state legislators in attendance. As we heard from many of those legislators, it's going to be a difficult budget year. Right off the top, the state has a $3.5 billion hole in its FY26 budget that they need to fill. That could actually increase depending on what happens with the executive order that came out yesterday and that we've been learning about today, and what happens with federal budget reconciliation. So, if for some reason during reconciliation where the federal government still needs to adopt a budget for themselves that started October 1st of last year, has various programs such as Medicare or Medicaid and get impacted, that'll have a significant impact on the state's budget. So we're monitoring what's happening in Washington from a fiscal policy and budgetary standpoint, and we're going to spend most of the spring session here playing defense. I don't expect, from a financial standpoint, to really see anything. I'm hoping that nothing gets taken away. That being said, we have had some of the legislators reach out to us interested in sponsoring some of the specific legislative initiatives that we proposed. So everything from the publishing of legal notices for the assessments to the code enforcement issue that Ms. Williams has been championing for a number of years. So we're working to get those refined. Last Friday was the deadline for language to go to the Legislative Review Bureau, or LRB, so that the actual bills can be properly drafted and then introduced. So we'll see what bills actually then get introduced and if they move or not. Happy to answer any questions.
Are there questions or comments? Member Renault.
My question is, typically we have reviewed this before it was presented before
Yes.
the legislators. So I don't see the purpose in voting on it now.
Great point, Mr. Renault. It's largely unchanged from last year. What we do as a statement of policy, want to have you officially on record as having said that this basically what our initiatives were a year ago are what they are today.
Are there other comments or questions? All right, seeing none, please vote. Are we missing? Member Allison?
Aye.
Okay, that passes unanimously. All right, discussion. Is there any topic for discussion related to finance, audit, and legislative? Public comment? Miscellaneous? All right, we're adjourned.